the secretary that you have in there can't be involved with other stuff in the general office. And so we can understand the need that you have a separate secretary in there that's not jeopardizing information or other things. And we have a couple, when we get down to that on the budget, we'll discuss a little bit of that with you, but we can understand the need and the reason behind that.
I'll actually comment on it. They're talking about someone for 30 hours a week. They would not be full-time. It would not include benefits of any kind. But the other thing is it would free up the officers to go do police things while that person could be in the office when people come in to request certain documents or whatever. It actually was brought up that especially to have that officer work in this office and have access to somewhat personal records and still work there with other records could be somewhat of a conflict of interest. I do have a question, and this is not contingent, but if you did have an office manager that was able to get stuff done and they had, say, on that 30 hours could spend a couple of hours at the senior center helping them with their stuff as a secondary thing, would you be opposed to that if they're getting their work done for you? This is not contingent.
I'm gonna be stingy and say no.
Okay. Well, I'm still, personally, I'm still okay with hiring that person after going through the budget.
Make a motion.
I make a motion that we approve, and action item number 2 is actually, 2 things, but we probably should approve one at a time. So I make a motion that we approve the request for a new office manager for the police department at 30 hours a week.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Let's move on to the new officer. Do we have a motion on that?
So just for some quick clarification on that, on the budget, that was originally looked at as possibly 2 officers. And they've cut that down to 1, and the money that was set aside for for the academy and for basically for the whole year for that individual, that money is not included on the salaries and wages. That was actually included on another line. And because they cut it down to just 1, it's all in the budget. And I also think having, I've actually had people come up and say, well, such and such a town has X amount of people. Why do we have, they've got 6 officers and we've got 4, or they've got 6 officers, why do we need 5? The one thing I'd like to point out is it's just as easy to check 1 water trough for 100 cows as it is to check that water trough for 10. You still gotta drive there and look at it. And there's 24 hours in the day that have to be patrolled, whether you have 1,100 people or 5,000 people. And the other good thing about having another officer, not to beat up on the new officer, but his wages are not gonna be as much. And the time that he spends working will not be overtime hours that would be accrued. So I think it's nothing but positive. So I make a motion that we approve the new officer.
And I'll second.
The hiring of the new officer, or you're gonna say, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Another thing that people don't realize when they talk about population is we have the Grand Canyon right here. We have 8 million people going through town every year that a lot of other towns don't have. So it does put a little bigger burden on us. We'll go down to item 3. Discussion of possible action regarding the approval of care and share budget items and rollover budget.
You know what, I'm remiss in this, because I looked at the approval for the budget. I did not follow up on the amount of, what was the rollover budget?
For care and share, you mean?
Is what?
About 9,000 something.
Okay, so,
Left over? 9,400. That's what Jamie had given me when I was ordering my supplies. But I really didn't order for the full 2025 year because I just needed some quickly to get me through, you know.
Okay, that might be a question for Lars,
He's right there on the phone, he's listening.
as far as if we can do that or if it's already figured into the budget.
Well, and it's okay, I mean,
No, if it's okay, I don't have a problem doing it, but I'm not sure if, I don't know how they do that from year to year, if there's a carryover.
Lars, we need a little help here.
Yeah,
I don't think they've ever.
so they have, for the proposed budget, $6,000, and then what was the unused portion? So, okay, so there's 12,000, I see, so you're trying to move another 10,000 over to that 6,000, so you want 16,000?
No, I just wanted it rolled over. I wanted the 9,400 rolled over.
The balance of last year's,
The balance of this.
Oh, so
month.
you want 9,000?
Are you getting
instead
all
of
of
the
what we're talking
proposed
about
6?
here, Lars?
yeah, I can hear. I'm ready to provide some insight.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Um,
No, you're good.
so yeah, we have actually included, I put it under non-departmental, it's, underneath care and
page
share budget,
21.
one-time funds, there's 15,000, for the capital items that have been requested. The rollover budgeting is totally fine. We can, basically each year the town has to establish a new budget, so you can consider that a rollover or whatever, what terms you wanna use, but
So if
will
we
just
leave it,
budget what's needed.
if we leave it as it stands at the budget of 16,000 and the care and share one-time funds of 15,000, it'd still be the same, it's just $1,000 more. So if we approve their budget as it is, then there's really nothing.
And it's in there,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
And then, okay, and the other advantage to this is part of that budget, like one of the things, the bathroom, the plumbing and fixtures down there, I went down and looked at that, and I really think that that's wise to do the bathroom so that we can separate it, so we don't have people wandering.
Well, I've had people going through, so that's a problem for me, because I don't, you know, one gentleman walked right in when they were having a meeting, and that's not, I mean, I try to keep care and share separate from the cops.
So, I think it's there, the money's there, I make a motion that we approve the care and share budget.
I'll second.
Now tell me what that is.
Do you have your budget in front of you?
Oh, I don't know.
It's page 21 of 32.
Okay.
Have you got it in front of you there?
I do.
So if you look all the way down, if you look all the way to the right and all the way down,
She's looking at her paperwork.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, I'm not looking at this one, I see, it's just, okay, all right. Okay.
On page 21 is a whole lot, it says, oh, non-departmental.
what it comes
Okay,
out to,
I got it.
you got $1,000 more than you asked for. So like if that bathroom, so you've got 6,000 operating costs and 15,000 one-time expenditure, and that's how he put that in there. So like if your bathroom costs a couple hundred more than you planned on, you're okay.
Okay, well, so my budget will be 6,000 to get my supplies and stuff that I need, is that what you're saying?
Whatever your normal care and share budget is, I don't know what you do with it. But the other,
All included together.
It'll be all included together.
yeah, just no parties.
Okay, so what I need to do on these other projects that I've got then is do I have to get bids on all of those?
If it's over a certain dollar amount, you need to get approval,
Okay,
so. But anyway, so as far as tonight's concerned, you're good to go.
Do we need to,
Make a motion on it.
he
Yeah,
made
he
the
made the
motion,
motion,
he
we need-
seconded it, so we just need to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, item number 4, discussion possible action regarding switching IT services. I guess it was a little rough here a week ago when we had the power outage. And we were actually locked out of some things with our IT guy that we currently have. And it would just be nice to have a local person doing that.
I can comment on that besides what Ted has. We also, in our calls to the Les Olson Company that has our current contract, the contract is up in August of, and so we wanted to get it pretty much moving. We have had a contract offer from the company here locally that has been doing a lot of our IT work, but Les Olson Company actually said, can you get somebody to fix that? Because we can't. So,
So the current contract is up August 2nd.
yes.
Do we need to but to do a contract like this, do we need to put this out for a
Request for,
RF?
request for proposal.
Okay,
Yes,
so if we approve it, we're not necessarily approving someone, we're just approving putting it,
putting it out,
okay?
yes. And there's gonna be additional services and stuff needed. Our backups were in terrible shape. The desktop, which was on the computers, was not backed up. And there was some other services, but Kinetic from Canab ended up doing a lot of work for us for nothing. And saved us, getting us a lot of things done. So we also received a bill for just trying to get our server back, and it was right at $1,000 from Les Olson. And yet,
For somebody that didn't do anything.
well, they were doing it remotely as best they could, but then they locked it up. So we need better backup. We need better backup on the, and they're proposing to have 2 backups, so they'll be in to visit every 2 weeks because they're local. They'll come here and hands-on. They're the same people that are putting in the locks and the video cameras also. But that's subject to them being the low bid also.
So even though their contract's up, I think we need to notify them, let them know that we're gonna put it out for bid. or-
Yes, and they've already looked at it, and I just need to give Les Olson notification tomorrow or Monday, so that the 30 days is noticing that it's subject to a renewal. And otherwise, it'll automatically renew on that date.
Keep that under control.
I make a motion that we approve switching IT services and instead, what?
Put it out.
And put it out for bid.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and possible, do we wanna skip 5 and go into 6? Do we wanna do 5 in executive session?
Number 5 isn't executive session.
The number 5 would be the budget, budget which is being here,
Yeah.
but we can start on it, but we're definitely not gonna finish, but at least Lars will have input on, and we can give him input on the cuts that have been done already separately if you would like.
So we did make a motion to move the agenda around. Why don't we do number 6?
Yeah, I think that'd be
And
good.
then that'll be done.
Discussion possible action regarding Vice Mayor Scott being put on the contact list for our attorney, Brandon Kavanaugh.
I make a motion that we approve Vice Mayor Scott being put on the contact list for Brandon Kavanaugh.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We appreciate all the time you put in, Cecil. So let's go ahead and go back to item 5 and start on the first page, I guess, or wherever you want to start.
But going through the budget, the summary, he points out that we need to do some adjusting our cuts. Right now, we know kind of where we're going, but getting it to the public is what we're here for. And so it'll probably require a separate meeting where we go over the finals that have been decided upon. But as far as, we can work our way through some of the items, and Lars is online and he can adjust accordingly. But I think we're gonna be probably covering a lot of that on the phone, and then have another meeting where we have a public forum where we discuss the finals. Because there was a significant amount of changes that Lars is not even aware of yet.
Okay.
So how would you like to proceed?
So do we need, I don't think we really need to go through the general fund revenues line for line. I do have a question on some of the departments and some of the things that are put in here. As far as general fund revenues though, which is page 5 of 32, if you go down to line 10-36-80, it says law enforcement fees. It has them down for estimated ending 780, and the proposed budget is $700. Our law enforcement brings in way more money than that, and the state takes 67%. Where in this budget is that?
That would be the court fines. It's under fines and forfeitures on the next page. So the fees that are coming to the town from the law enforcement activity are right there.
So estimated ending was 230. We're hoping this coming year for 200,000, which it could be a lot more than that, but we're hoping for 200,000. Is that correct on that line?
Yeah, that would be the what I'm projecting. So if there's any input to that number, I'd be happy to take it.
I don't think we need to guess. I just wanted to know where that was inserted. Thank you.
Yeah, the interesting thing I'll note about that is it looks like the court IGA is going up next year by 80,000 because of a new a new person they're looking to have included. So the increased activity is also driving the need for new additional help in the court as well.
Right. And we'll probably cover that. Those gals have come ready to fight and argue, so we'll cover that later. Okay.
We'll
So-
take that out of the 66%.
So I don't have any questions as far as revenue unless you guys do, if we wanna jump into some of this other stuff. On page 7 of 32, under legislative, it has a total of 23,229, and, if you look under salaries, mayor and council, as far as I know, there's only a very small amount of that going out, cause there's people not receiving that. So that 7,440, is that just something from last year, or what is that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and glad you brought it up. That is carryover from last year, which was the mayor receiving $6,000 a year, $500 a month.
So, and the current mayor is not receiving that 500,000, so we need to just kinda make a note of that. Hey, are you sending that money to Donnie?
No, I'm not doing it, no.
Okay.
No,
So-
we don't.
Okay, so anyway, that needs to be looked at. Also, under that, it says employee benefits, 589. None of us receive any benefits.
So what that is, it's Social Security and Medicare that is required to pay on top of wages.
But if
There's no
we don't,
wages.
but there's no wages. I receive 0.
So I can zero that out. I'd be happy to if that's the
Cause
current situation.
the next one on that I have a question is books, subscriptions and members is $6,000. Is that the Arizona League of Towns and Cities?
I think so. I'll have to log in and check that.
So Arizona League of Towns and Cities is not a requirement, and tonight is not the meeting to have that discussion, but I think I would like to have that put on a future agenda. They're a liberal lobbyist group, and I can call any town in Arizona and talk to anybody I want without paying them $6,000. And they did not help us out with previous lawsuits that we've had. Did both of you just look up and wonder about that? Do you know anything? You're not involved with them,
No,
right?
but I think, I may be wrong, but some of that funding might be do you guys still get the ARS books, all the law books? Do you guys get this, the town used to get it when I was here, those are like thousands. You don't get them, you guys don't get them, because they used to have your own set in addition to the court.
Oh, I know we have a whole
Bookcase full of
If you
them.
get new, they're thousands, I just got like the pocket update, and it was like $600 for this tiny little book.
Oh,
So you may be getting publications, I don't know, that, in our budget sometimes, although the county covers it now, but
so
that could be part of that membership. Or
so we need to look into that, but at a future date, we need to put, and I'm just a redneck, but we need to put that on the agenda, cause if we're paying for something we're not getting services for, I don't think we need to. Next question, it has $700 in gas on the legislative. Nobody on this council gets gas paid for. Equipment, supplies, and maintenance, we don't have an office, we don't maintain anything, we have no equipment. Telephone is $500. My telephone is right here, I pay for that. Professional and technical, are we kinda spreading the IT around, or is there some specific professional and technical, I don't know about. Education and training, $500. I don't know what that was supposed to be. And then miscellaneous, $5,000 under legislative. Kenny, do you plan on spending $5,000 this coming year? Dawn, Cecil? So under that, under legislative, there's 23,229 earmarked, and maybe 7,000 of that. So I think there's some money there that we could move around into another account, or just put it back into, the general fund. But if that is money that we don't need, and I'll talk about this later, but I'd like to maybe talk about an appropriations fund instead of having to dip into our contingency fund. But anyway, do those questions make sense, Lars?
Yeah, they're definitely good input. The budget was put in based on last year, and looks like that budget was based on the actuals in '22. But you can see
I wanna know who spent $260 traveling, who spent $500 on equipment and supplies, $1,000
Yeah.
for professional and technical, as far as I know. But anyway, I don't think that is needed.
So if the council direction is to reduce the budget down, I'm happy to do that.
The only exception would be, salaries and employee benefits, but, we just need to double check how much that is. And so the 589, if that's just Social Security, but I think the biggest check anybody's getting is $55, and that's only a couple of people. So the rest of that, and maybe we better not jump the gun on that 6,000 until we find out if that for sure what that is. But out of that, I think we could drop that 23,000 a bunch.
Yeah, that's $16,000 that we don't need to.
Yeah. So I'd like to maybe look at that and change that. Going to the next page, okay, are you guys?
Yeah.
Do we need to direct him though?
So I would say at least take $10,000 out of that. But I have a question on that. If it turns out that this other stuff is not necessarily legitimate and we can get rid of that, can we roll that over? Okay, so the appropriations fund, instead of having just a general contingency fund, which we would like to preserve, is it possible, if we have the money at the end of this meeting tonight, let's say we've got $50,000 or $100,000 over that word, what was the word? The structural imbalance. Can we put $50,000 or $100,000 in an appropriations fund that does not necessarily have to be touched, but it's already included in our budget if we're gonna pay $500 to a parade, or we end up needing a new piece of equipment or something like that, it's already in the budget. Could we then just roll that money from there over into our appropriations fund?
I think I'm gathering what you're saying, and so basically we'd have an amount that we designate to be used in emergencies.
Yes, instead of reaching into the contingency fund. And really, maybe it's just semantics, but if we're reaching into our contingency fund as far as an audit or something goes, that doesn't look good, and it's probably not a good habit to get into.
Well, basically the reason the audit may have flagged that is because if you do have an emergency appropriation that requires council action to move it to a particular place where it's spent, instead of charging it directly there. So I think we're on the same page, it's just semantics, like you said. So we have been budgeting a contingency every year. Just in the future, instead of, if the transaction comes up, it requires specific council action to move that budget.
So it's really not a big deal either way, no matter where we've got it waiting.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna worry about an appropriations fund tonight then, but I'd like to give you direction to see if any or all of that $23,229 could go back into the general fund.
Yeah, that's, like I say, that's
So
about
we can look into that and then
$16,000.
do that on this final meeting with him.
Yes,
So we don't need to do that tonight. We can,
okay.
just so he's aware of what we're thinking of.
And then on page 8 of 32, we've got a capital outlay for equipment of $52,000 under the town clerk. What is that?
Yes, that was a carryover from the previous year for different improvements. I listed them on the memo, but there's security enhancement, a badge system, cameras, video streaming, and data network upgrade.
So it wasn't a carryover of cash, it was a carryover of intention to spend?
Right.
Oh, same thing.
The, Kinetics, they've done the work as far as the doors, if you will, and card key access. But they've ordered cameras, and we reduced the number of cameras that were gonna be needed. But they wanted a commitment that we would have money coming into this next year because the project is going into next year.
So it may not cost $52,000, but we're covered.
We're covered, and we may end up looking at a new server, which is $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000 based upon the change. So
Okay.
it's pretty close.
Okay. Next question is page 9 of 32. We have no town manager. $6,950 has been budgeted for a town manager. And it's kind of spread out between books, gas, travel. I mean, we've got $1,000 for our town manager to travel. We don't have one. Gas, 500. Equipment supply, almost all, well, all of that 6,950 could go back into the general fund.
That's a good point. That was carried over without direction. So given direction, I'll definitely zero that out.
And the only reason I'm being picky about this is because we've been pretty hard on some other departments. And if we get some money back in that general fund, there actually is some equipment going forward that we may need. And so instead of having that just sitting there earmarked, it'd be good to have that.
No, that's very good to start finding these things, because it all adds up.
Yeah.
So, next page, 10 of 32, and I'm getting some conflicting numbers on the proposed budget. On the memorandum, it said that they were going to 1,306,000. On page 10 of 32, it said that their proposed budget was meant 1,566,000, and in another place, I actually had a number of 1,633,500. But I know that they went through and redid theirs, and then they sent you a copy of the new one, which was cut by over 600,000. Did you get a receipt of that?
I just did a few minutes before this meeting.
Okay.
But I'll explain on the memo about the 1,306,000 is because I was looking at the operations, which is basically personnel plus supplies and services. So
Okay,
I had removed the capital projects out of that number.
okay. So actually, the ending number should end up being the same. I guess it's not where you started, it's where you ended up, so.
And the reason why I was focusing on operations is because of that structural imbalance I was talking about, where you would want to balance your operations to your ongoing revenue. So you're not building your operations over savings accounts.
So on that particular page, I think we'll find we're good to go. That 600,000 that they cut out of their budget will put us back where we need to be. Not only.
I would like some discussion on this, if I may, on personnel.
Okay, go ahead.
So this evening, it looks like we've added 2 positions that I had not included in the budget for the police department. So I would like some clarification on the amount of hours, or like what's the staffing going to look like, so I can budget accordingly? Is it gonna be?
So on the salaries of wages in police,
Mhm.
that includes the existing officers that are already working, and that includes 37,000 for the clerk.
The existing budget did not include the office manager.
So did you get that page that they sent you from the revised budget?
Yeah,
Okay, do you have access to that?
yes.
So in the very first line, 10-54-11, that line includes salaries for the 3 officers and the police chief and the office manager. And if you want a breakdown on that, we can give you a breakdown on that of how we came to that. But the 4th officer, so we'll end up with.
The other new position.
The new position is down on 10-54-62. The line 10-54-62 includes the academy and the salary for the new officer for the coming year.
So, so is that the revised number I just received of 62,000?
62,070.
Okay.
And that
So in other words, the salaries and wages up above is the existing personnel plus the office manager.
Yes.
And 10-54-62 also included a 31% employee benefit for the insurance and everything.
So, I would like to try to recalculate to make sure my numbers match, but the biggest question mark I have is how much overtime to budget.
It's in there. If you want to talk about individual names and their salaries, we need to go into executive session, and that's not on the agenda. But that number on 10-54-11, that includes a maximum amount of overtime. We've also changed one of the individuals to a salary. And if you want, even after the meeting, I could talk to you and give you those specifics, but it probably is not appropriate to discuss all of that in public meeting. Even though it is public information, they need to come and put in a public records request. But I'd be glad to talk to you about that afterwards and show you the split.
So, yeah, I'm not intending to talk about individual people, but the way I calculate, overtime is basically what is the coverage that the town needs. So in
Right.
2 week period of time, you have, 14
So
days,
you go
24
around the
hours.
tree on the right-hand side, we went around the tree on the left-hand side. I'll
Okay.
tell you, this salary was figured, going with, so in the past, by law, you have to pay overtime of anything over 86 hours. And what we figured this on is basically something like working 7/12s. So in one pay period, instead of going up to 86, we were talking about going up to 84. And then on top of that would be 20 hours of overtime for 4 of the officers. And so the money on that would be different depending on the individual and how much they're making. And that's the part I'd rather talk to you about when we're not in a public session.
Okay, I understand.
And as far as the coverage, there is a certain amount, there's a certain amount of hours, but whether you say we have 1.7 officers every day or whatever, there are there's certain days and certain times that are hot spots where there may be multiple officers, and then there's other times there might only be one, but the others are available, so. But then, even at that, we probably shouldn't be disclosing that in public when our officers are hiding around the corner, so. Let's, I'll make a point afterwards just to touch base with you on that, if that's okay.
That's perfectly good with me.
Okay.
The key thing is that you're not going to disclose what the working hours are of the policemen, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Not necessarily the pay and other things, which is public knowledge, but we definitely don't want the public to know the officers' hours and where they're at and their days off and such.
Well, and even within each department and the individuals, if they wanna discuss their wages by themselves, that's up to them. But for us to publicly discuss how much one clerk makes next to the other clerk, that's inappropriate, so. And we'd get in a lawsuit over it. So that, I will make a point that afterwards I'll give you a holler. It'll only take a minute to share it with you.
We good? I think we're good. Do you have any other questions on that particular department, Laura?
No, I received the updated amounts, so I will use those in the revised budget.
I think fire, there again,
Pretty explanatory,
what's that?
self-explanatory.
I thought you said it was inflammatory. No, but even on the fire, I think down the road, I'd like to, at some point, be able to put more money into that. Going over to, Parks and Recreation, we've got salaries and wages, and I know that Parks and Recreation falls under the Public Works, but we've got employee benefits at almost it's 50% of what the salaries and wages are under Parks and Recreation. Was that just an accounting thing, or is there a reason that the employee benefits are so much under Parks and Recreation?
Let me check that. It could be a miscalculation on my part. We do have, in that department, we have a third of 2 employees. So it's 0.6.
So we're just splitting the Public Works across through 2 or 3 divisions, so there may be another spot where employee benefits are less than what it shows.
Yeah, there's a whole series of allocation percentages that employees are split. Basically, most everybody is split in some way except for law enforcement.
Okay. In fact, that kind of brings us up to the next, under professional fees, town attorney is up quite a bit. Up almost 14,000 over 2 years ago. I also have a question about that, under the law enforcement, so we have professional fees with our town attorney, and then we're also charging the law enforcement attorney fees. Why are we doing that?
What
Oh,
page
is that
you got?
directed to me?
13, yes, 13 and,
Um,
But it showed that on some other page, that how much we were charging. Do you remember what page that was, Rick?
and 14, I think is what he's talking about.
I think what you're referring to is sometimes the attorney is working on certain areas. I personally don't know why it's been done that way. It could be done directly by charging a town attorney.
Prosecutor fees.
So,
The prosecutors charge the police department because they, in addition to, like, they have dealings with the court, but they liaison with the police department, the police call them, so they're billed under the police department, the prosecutors, it doesn't come out of a judicial budget. So you'll have your town attorney doing town things, and you'll have the prosecutor, which happens to be the same law firm representing as prosecutor, so they're two separate budgets, and they may even be billed at a different rate, I don't know. But that's probably what it is under law firm.
so if we get a high-profile case that goes on for, if O.J. Simpson comes to town, and we have $200,000 in prosecution fees, we're gonna charge the police that?
It's a line item under their budget, yeah. I think it's, a long time ago it was under the judicial, but it's not appropriate for the judicial budget to pay the prosecutor. Because we don't really, I mean, the prosecutor represents the state.
It was,
So that's why it was put under there. I mean, it could be under.
The prosecutor represents the state.
Which is the town.
And we enforce the state law, that they're our representatives.
So any criminal case is the state
We're the
versus
state.
defendant name. So the state is the law enforcement. They're witnesses for the state. The prosecutor is the
And-
representative of the state.
So to save us money, don't go to court.
Correct. Yes, sir, we'll write that over.
You can amend our bond sheet to say you may not fight your tickets.
Yeah, let's do that.
You know what?
No,
We need to address that because that's not right. They're being penalized for doing their job.
well, whether you put it under, it's not a penalty, whether you put under their budget or a different budget, the money's coming from the town fund, no matter where you put it.
We would just need to put it back in that line item. And he represents them, so if they go to court, they're there with the prosecutor, and the prosecutor's helping them.
If they have a
Win our
question,
case in
yeah,
court.
I understand.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if you get a high-profile case that costs $200,000, it's coming out of their budget, is what I'm understanding.
Yeah, so it could possibly be very hard to, predict how much it would be, but either way, it's coming from town funds. I mean, whether it's their budget or,
So someone chose to put it on the police.
Yeah.
So I
I don't agree with that either.
you can put it somewhere else, I don't know where to go, but. I'm just telling you, that's where, I know that's what those fees are.
It's hard for them to budget something they don't know what is.
And council, sorry, jumping in, I was just gonna say, I think there's flexibility there from the town. There isn't necessarily a correct answer on that, so if there's a preference to put it all in one place, I think that's correct as well.
I would say not on their budget.
I-
I would put it back into the general fund. But
it has to go into the budget somewhere, but I'd rather see that under professional fees. I get it, if it's 7,000, okay, no, right here, there's something wrong. Because if you look under page 13 of 32, it says prosecuting attorney, estimated actual 7,000, and here it says proposed budget, oh, okay, so estimated actuals last year was 7,000, and that went under professional fees. We're also saying for the coming up year, we're looking at 10,000, but we're charging the town that money out of professional fees, but we're taking it out of their account. It's right there on your line item.
Yeah.
We don't have that packet.
Where was there was a question about this,
It's in line item 31 for us right now.
professional and technical services, and when you break that down, it's under lawyer fees. So,
And as a matter of fact, I think, if I'm reading this correctly, and I don't have it might be right here. We don't have a budget for professional and technical services in the 2023-24 budget. Right,
Ye-
on my page it's 0, is that real?
under 105431, professional and technical services,
What's our budgeted
$10,000.
amount? That's what I have the actual through May.
Yeah,
This is,
there's a zero budget.
It's a 0 budget. Like, so when the budget was approved last fiscal year, it was 0 under the professional police, under that technical we're
under the
negative on that,
2023,
$10,000.
so we took, so there's another under the proposed budget, okay, on page
Like
10 of
$20,000.
32, we're gonna charge them $20,000 professional and technical services. You're sure
So
there's
here's
nothing else but
$20,000
the lawyer on that?
So
professional and
today,
technical services, but it's right
I'm
here
gonna
too.
just make sure, but if I'm right,
So we're
it's the
double dipping
lawyer
it.
and the.
That's what he's talking about, I
It
think.
is, and it wasn't 20,000, but today we knocked that down with the understanding the lawyer stuff was going out, and 10,000 was only gonna be left in that line item for IT.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm glad that so if you go back to page 10 of 32,
Yeah, there's
and under
$20,000.
10-54-31, it's $20,000. That should only be $10,000, and that $10,000 that was tacked onto law enforcement should go back on page 13 of 32 under professional fees, and right there under prosecuting attorney, it says 10,000. So what you guys are saying, we're double dipping on this.
Yes,
So that 10,000, actually that 10,000, if you look at the page that they sent to you under 10-54-31, under their budget, they only budgeted 10,000, but that's for other professional and technical services, and the prosecuting attorney absolutely is under the town.
yes.
So I was wrong just not to chase that farther. But the prosecuting attorney does not come out of the police budget, it comes out of the town's professional fees, and we need to make sure that stays there. But while we're on that, I also have another question. We had a situation where we had a vehicle that should have been totaled, and it was sent off to get repaired, and there was a total of $47,000 deposited in the town's account back in November of 2023. It was deposited in the town's general fund, and 5,000, do you have that?
You let us know when necessary.
Okay, so. Okay, so, $2,564.27 Oh, that's Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool.
Line item 55. Keep going.
So we've got 2,564.27 deposited in their account. 2,564.27 was paid to AccuFix, but there was a total of $47,000 deposited in the account in general fund. It was not deposited into the police budget, but it was taken out of their budget, but it was not credited to them, and we need to rectify that. If it was never credited to them, but it was taken out of their budget, that was wrong.
Well, there is some flexibility in how you handle that. We could, I don't think it's incorrect to credit the police department, but I also don't think it's incorrect to charge it to general revenues.
It was not charged to general revenue, it was not
Positive to general.
credited to the police. It was deposited in general fund, it was left there for 7 months, and then it was debited out of the police's fund. So last year, about $42,000 was debited out of their account that was never credited to their account. And that insurance money should have been paid out by holding it. That's third-degree insurance fraud in the state of Arizona, and I think you can be fined up to $50,000 or put in jail for 7 years. And it could have just been a mistake, but we do need to look into that. Am I right on my numbers, Serena?
I don't know. I'm not paying that close of attention.
Yes, Derek, you're right.
So, and we don't have to fix that tonight, but we need to find out where that $42,000 went, and then we need to credit it back to the police's account.
Counselor, I saw that receipt when I was looking through the budget. I believe it's in the miscellaneous revenues of the general fund revenue page under 103796. So if the desire is to move that to offset the expense, I can do that.
Well, we're dinging them for going over budget, and $42,000 is a lot of money.
General revenues, what was the number on that?
103696.
103696, miscellaneous revenues. So there's actually, so we're talking about, out of that 65,000 in miscellaneous revenues, about 42,000. So that's interesting that it was ever even deposited, and I guess into miscellaneous revenues, but it kind of got lost. So that regardless of our current budget, that 42,000 needs to be credited back to the police on top of whatever their budget is this year. Because it was put in the general fund and left there, and it was specifically to pay for an insurance claim.
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any more questions on that.
You ready for us?
Okay, so give us a quick, you know what, life is what it is. Tell us what you need and want.
Do you want us to come up?
Sure.
So in January, we came and let you know that we are definitely understaffed. As the police department has grown and as our filings have gone up, Dusty's handling it single-handedly. And in January, we needed a full-time employee. With adding new officers, I don't know what that will do, but we are asking for We're just gonna ask for one full-time 40-hour employee. The numbers we received that we put in the budget, were the numbers from the county. And she said it would be approximately 77,847 more. That covers, let's see what it covers.
Say that number again,
77,847.
and that includes like a 31% benefit package.
Yeah, it's the benefit package, indirect costs. Some of that's gonna be like the facility, well, I don't think they charge for facilities, but like there's a portion for, supplies. We don't have the actual numbers yet. The county will prepare them, have their attorney review them, bring them here. You'll have your attorney review them. But it looks like the total amount is 161,852, which is what we put in the budget.
It's different hours, isn't it?
Yeah, mine said
Yeah,
154.
the number I put in the draft budget was the first proposal, but, I think it was this week we received the revised number, so that didn't get in the budget.
We just got it today, yeah, a couple days ago.
So I've got
Is it
142,
161?
371, and what should they?
161,852.
161,852 is what I have.
And that's the court IGA.
That's the court IGA. Yeah, that would be 2 full-time
For
employees.
me and another full-time person.
So you're not going for one, you're going for two.
We're going for 1. It's, Dusty's already in there, and then we're
That's
adding,
included in it.
that's included. So from what we had before, it's 77 for a whole nother person. So the total for the 2 is 161,852.
So what's your problem? Why did you come ready to fight?
I don't know. I've also put in a salary increase for myself. I don't know if we want to talk about that here in public.
There's the fight.
Yeah, here's the fight.
We'll fight about that.
Yeah, if you look at your agenda for the past year and a half, it said magistrate evaluation, and we've put that off because there was an issue with not having a contract, and it's never been resolved.
So did you make arrangements for that in the current budget?
I put it in our budget request, correct?
So we should just put that on the agenda for the next meeting then, and we'll address that.
Okay.
Whoever's.
I'm right.
Okay. So I'll come
About
prepared
5 or
like with,
6 things.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't have a problem with it. And I don't think we don't need to make a motion or anything. As long as we understand what it is, so.
okay,
Because we will in the
At the end.
25th,
Yeah,
in the
okay.
meeting.
okay. We'll come,
So does that mean like we're approved for another person? Like to plan on that, or do we need to wait till the next meeting to get approval? I'm just confused.
For the new person,
Mhm.
it is not on the agenda tonight.
So
and
we need to
we
get
can
that
always-
on the agenda
Okay.
and the
That's what's-
judge's wages.
That's correct.
okay, we'll put those on.
That's correct.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The pool is what it is. The library's pretty conservative, really.
I think we need to take a look at the library's wages. I think they're way behind times.
Are they? Put that on the next agenda. Well, you know what, though? Some of that's included in this in this budget. Some of the wage increases are in this year's budget.
But not for the library, it per se, is it? No, it's for compensation in the office, that's what we're talking about.
You know what is,
We are way behind compared to other small libraries, yes.
so maybe we need to make some concessions for that in this budget, but we'll have to talk about that to see what a guesstimate would be. And then as far as any wage increases, we would have to do that in a separate meeting. Can you just see what their idea is and maybe add that to the wages and salaries? Or see what it is and don't laugh at them. Lars and them can separate the two. Okay,
Christina was, his assistant, and we ran it by her and couldn't separate them.
okay. I don't have any, so the only thing I had under, the only so we've already talked about some of this other stuff. One of there was an item under building and ground, that was the Mini X, because they need to leave equipment up the canyon, and the Mini X was right at about 50,000. And he said he could live with that if we didn't end up with it, but, if, I'd like to give our guys what they need to get the job done. If after we go through this, like some of the legislative, some of that other stuff, if we end up with around 50,000 and it would fit in the budget, I'd like to leave that in there, but if not, he said we can take that 50,000 out of the budget. So there is 50,000, in fact,
Council, just one clarification on this one. The Mini X was budgeted in 3 ways, in the electric fund, water fund, and wastewater fund, so that doesn't hit the general fund.
oh, so it's split in those 3 areas.
Yeah,
So
is
we're
that
not-
a
we're not-
correct assumption?
Oh, so we can just go on with it then.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
well,
leave it there.
I wasted a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for nothing. Okay, good. Great. Question on the building inspection, page 19 of 32.
Mhm.
That pretty much is just a kind of a pass-through thing. We don't really pay the building inspector. He does an inspection, it costs a certain amount, they pay the town, and we pay him. Is that how that works?
I believe so. I misunderstood last year. You can see the budget was 0 for salaries and wages. I understood that somehow he gets paid through the money, not, the town wasn't actually paying it, so that's why there's such a big change here in this department.
So, so I get that 22,000 really then doesn't come out of the town's
Yeah,
pocket. It just has to be included.
Right, so the general revenues has a line for building permits, and right now we have 15,000, so maybe that needs to be increased to match it.
I think we need to take a good look at that whole deal.
See it. So, and maybe for now, we can just leave it as it stands, but we need to have a discussion on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What the cost of permits,
Well, just building inspection in general, we need to talk to Ross and see what we're doing on that.
Town's taking all the risk, town's putting all the expense out, and we're not collecting anything for it. We need to take a look at that.
On page 20 of 32, the senior center, the only thing I was a little bit unsure about on that is line number 10-75-70. It says revenue offset, special revenue fund, 40,000. Is that a grant or something?
Yeah, that revenue comes through a grant fund. I think it was NACOG. Or is it the county? I don't remember the agency, but the town gets some money that gets moved from the special revenue fund to the offset.
Okay, but anyway, that's revenue for sure. And then on page 21 of 32, on line 10-49-58, that 615, that was contingent in the contingency fund on if we went with the budget that we had, but since we've made some changes, I know we don't have the exact numbers, but that 615 should end up being back up more like that 1,097,000. Am I guessing that right?
I'll have to do calculation, but that's, you're exactly right, that budget was matching what the reserve was.
So we should be almost back up with a couple of these other things that we've nixed, we should be back up to that.
Yeah.
And then another question though on, like our, okay, the power fund, we were trying to get the reserve on that back up to around $1 million, and we had reserved X amount per year to help us achieve that. And maybe I just looked over it, but where would that be listed, the power fund reserve? And if we had budgeted anything for that this year?
On page 31 of 32, there's a line for the ending fund balance.
Ending fund balance, okay.
The council voted, I believe it was January or July of last year, to reserve 500,000. So that's where I've noted it, that there's 500,000 reserve, and then the remaining
What
amount of
line
the fund
is that?
balance is available.
Right, it's next to the bottom three lines is what he's talking about.
Page 30?
31 of 32,
32 ending fund balance.
the bottom three lines.
You know, oh, here it is. I just went too far.
Yeah.
It's 31, 32.
I did the same thing.
Oh, remaining balance. The very bottom line is our power.
Yes.
Oh, so we achieved it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. On all this other stuff, what is the television? Is that for the microwave reflector that we used in 1971?
I think there's a law that requires.
What are you laughing at?
I think it's that antennas we got on the houses.
Yeah,
I think that right there has to do a lot with
I
that.
think they require us to keep
Yeah.
that current. So, that's what I've heard. I don't know.
Television service.
That's so you put the little rabbit ears up there and get your TV.
So it's the microwaves that are up, okay.
Up on the hill.
Are you
in
laughing,
Canal.
are you laughing because you knew that?
She probably ought to say the rabbit ears.
Okay. I do have a question. Under page 24 of 32, under capital outlay, was that, proposed budget 283,172, is that the Kiamab Drive? Do you guys know? The paving
don't
and the
know.
concrete?
We had a question on the labor on that one too, or the salaries and wages.
Streets fund.
Oh, because this is under HERF, where it says salaries and wages, that much of their salaries is paid out of the HERF funds?
Well, I don't know
Yep.
if.
Yeah, we have public works staff allocated to the streets fund. There's 2 employees that are 33% charged there, and then 2 that are 20%. So basically,
Okay.
totaling up to be 1.
So I always thought that HERF funds just had to be used specifically for the project, but it can be used for labor that we used on that project.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a legal use of it. You can use personnel time to maintain your roads.
I honestly, I really don't have any other, I do have a question on page 26 of 32. Debt service, under the debt service, under the proposed budget, it's 111,211. Is that our total debt service for the town?
No, that's the two loans that are for the water fund.
Okay.
You can see there's a bit of a change. Last year I had it all under interest. This year I tried to be more accurate and put it under principal or interest, meaning the principal line is paying down the loan and then the interest cost is $22,799.
Okay.
125 of 32 on the total revenue on the grant.
Which line number?
1939/30. Right in the middle where it says total revenues, 4,530,000.
4 million.
Yeah, 4,530,000. And I was just wondering where that's coming from. These don't add up to that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The grant fund contains a large contingency. In the previous years, it's actually been much, much higher, like 10 million or 16 million, I don't remember. Last year, we bumped it down to 4,500,000. Basically, because the town is a home rule town, you have to establish a maximum expenditures that you'll have next year. So somewhere in the budget, you'll want to put in a large contingency that if you get a grant or if something major happens, you can move forward with it.
Okay, and that's what that 4 million.
So we
Yeah.
need to have the police department double check with you on a couple of grants that we wanted in that and make sure that we have, that there's a couple of contingency items out of the law enforcement's budget that was pulled out because it was dependent on a grant.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's included in that. So can you guys follow up with him and let him know the numbers that was taken off? Okay. Yes. Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. Cause if they come through and we didn't budget for it, then we're in trouble, even though it ain't our money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that 4 million should cover it, but we can double check with them.
Okay.
Okay.
The rest of this, like the electric fund, all that stuff is pretty straight up. I really don't have any other, I don't have any other questions.
What about some, money set aside for the, for some, what do you say, road base for the top of the levee? Did we
Oh,
ever get
that's
that?
in there.
Okay.
Um,
I didn't see it.
that, if you look at page 2 of 3, under the memorandum, and go down there to where it says Parks and Recreation, it'll be about the 1, 2, 3, 4, it's the 6th line from the bottom. Parks and Recreation, it's got 16,200 for blade across levee and pressure pump.
And wire.
So we're
How'd
good.
you guys get this early?
And
What
then-
is this?
Is that the correct department to budget that?
Well, this is,
Yeah.
the- we had the old one.
Okay.
Yep, that's
Numbers are
perfect.
different.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we want.
Okay.
And that
Dealing with
fence
them.
is included in that?
No.
Yeah, we have the 31,200 in Parks and Rec for capital improvements, so I listed them out on the memorandum, what those are.
The 15, the Parks and Recreation, the 15,000 for a chain link fence, that, I don't think that chain link fence went along with the crusher fines on the levy. That was something else, wasn't it?
I
It
don't
was
know what
something
was.
separate.
That's for the ball fields, they wanna do some more fencing.
Okay, okay. So what we had talked about is just
So
kind of
that's
doing
one of
the
grants that I'm
levy thing
gonna
in
try to get next year,
we'll do the first part this
if I'm
year
still here.
and
Next year.
then do the
Okay.
grants, so. But that way, we're at least up on our maintenance.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, that's, okay. Somehow
So
I
does
missed
anybody
this.
else got any questions? on
Not
any of
tonight.
it? Yeah, thank you so much for your time and for being here tonight. You've answered a lot of questions that have been pretty pressing for us.
Thanks a bunch.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've been making changes as I go, so I can kind of give you an update if you wanted.
Yeah, that'd be great, kind of see where we're at. I hope we're back where we need to be, or somewhere close.
I think we're pretty close.
So, we're actually, on the general fund, we're still spending about 300,000 over revenue in operations.
Really?
So, yeah, it's much better, obviously, than where we were at. I don't know where else we could examine other than,
There's something wrong there.
is there additional revenue sources or is there additional areas we could look at?
You know, I wonder if you, gosh, we don't need to have another meeting per se, but I wonder if you could print that out, those changes that you made, and email that to us so we can go through that.
Yeah, so I looked at the revised law enforcement budget. I put that exactly as presented to me this evening. I've made changes everywhere, I believe. But yeah, I definitely can send that.
I thought we were within $1,400.
I think we need to see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, and that's what tonight was, is basically a
Right.
work meeting to go through it, so.
but I just thought we were a lot closer. I thought we were within kicking
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah.
Well, remember we had 600 some thousand to look at, and
Yeah, that's what.
from the law enforcement,
669.
their revised budget dropped about 300,000. So that cut it in
Their
half.
budget dropped about 600,000.
Yeah,
There might be a couple of things that you've got that are still in there.
Oh, you know, I think the reason you might be looking at that is because the capital projects that law enforcement had, so that was not included in the deficit. I was looking at operations only. So at the end of the day, it helped the bottom line, but it didn't help the operation side as much.
now say that again. I don't understand what you're saying on that.
Yeah, so, let me pull up what we originally had. So let's look at law enforcement real quick.
It's 10 of 32.
So,
Oh, you're looking at that one.
1,566,797.
Yeah. And we cut $600,000 out of that.
And what I was trying to say was, a big portion of that was capital projects that was eliminated. So, 88,000, they're going from 260 to 88. And that definitely helps the general fund, but that wasn't included in that deficit number. Because I was trying to have us focus on the operational deficit. Does that make sense?
No, so the 1,566,797, you're telling us should have been like 2 million?
No, that number is fine, but if you look at the number right above it, total capital projects is 260,000.
And some of those went back into the grant contingency fund, and some of those got cut.
And then the revised version is 88,000.
Instead of 260.
So that capital projects line, if you look, then I'll show you on page, go to page
10 of 32.
4 of 32. Right about in the middle of that page on 4 of 32, you'll see net general fund operations.
Yeah.
That number is what I was having us kind of focus on, because the capital items are actually
Net general
below.
fund operations, that's
Right.
669,454.
Yes. So that 260,000 of police department capital is under the one-time sources and uses, which is below that. So, operations are ongoing in nature, so I wanted us to look at, is the ongoing revenue gonna cover our ongoing expenses? So that revised number under net general fund operations right now is $306,015 in the negative.
I guess I'm just having a hard time understanding, if you're not spending the money, it's not coming out of your revenue. And we've taken that clear out of there.
So
I'm not seeing something.
it's in the category right below the operations. I'm trying to separate the budget between ongoing operations versus one-time capital uses. You're correct, it will help the bottom line, but it doesn't help the net operations. Now, you as a council can make a decision and a choice and say that's good enough. But what I'm saying is that year over year, we're gonna be spending
No, yeah, we understand
down
that
our
part of it.
reserves. What's that?
I guess I don't understand, because all of this, if you go back to page 10 of 32, do we need to go through and add all that up? And the 1,566,797 is not the total of that whole column. If I go from that column, 1,566,797, if I add up that whole column all the way down there, does that not total 1,566,797? I can do it right now.
Yeah, that should be right. But what I'm saying is I'm splitting every department up between their operating costs and their capital requests, meaning one-time projects. In other words, every department has ongoing costs, maintenance, personnel. That number I'm trying to balance to the town's ongoing revenue. One-time projects are excellent uses of your savings. We try
So
not to build
I guess I still don't understand, because if you add up personnel, 683,297, if you add up services and charges, 623, 500,000, and then you add up capital projects, which is 260,000, that totals 1,566,797.
Yes,
And so we just took $600,000 out of that. I don't understand why that didn't affect. Okay, so
It-
let's.
it did
I
affect your-
understand, so the deal is, some of the capital outlay was actually dependent on grants. And those grants were just flat taken out of there, so, I guess that's, I don't understand why that didn't take it down $600,000.
it did help the bottom line of the general fund, just not the operational deficit.
So the bottom line of the general fund, it affected it by 600,000.
Correct,
The operational fund, it only affected it by 300,000.
correct.
So then the 669,454, so whether it affected whichever line that was, by making that one change in that one department, and we made changes in other departments, what is our contingency fund sitting at right now, or do you have, or can you pull that up?
Yeah, we're actually going to be at,
300 and some.
1,107,000.
Oh, so we actually brought our contingency fund back up. So we're $90,000 short of what our contingency fund was earlier in the year. So we're.
On the budget, yeah.
Okay. So we're still, so what you're talking about though is the operational deficit, 669,000. I think I'm understanding, but we're way close. I'm really concerned about that contingency fund, and if we're back up to 1,107,000, is that correct?
But at the end of
That's what I have, that's what I have on a tentative basis, but I'll go through, and send this out to
Okay,
you once I,
so we still,
yeah.
okay,
I'm still having a hard time, because at the end of the fiscal year, we're gonna be down that $600,000. I mean, we'll be up $600,000. I'm having a hard time understanding the difference between operational. I mean, at the end of the year, it's all the same.
so the operational is the continuing, ongoing, day-to-day stuff. The capital outlay is the one-time stuff, but some of our capital outlay is like the HERF funds. It comes in and it's there, and some of this other capital outlay that we included basically in the contingency fund makes our whole budget higher. And so on paper, it looks worse, but at the end of the year, if we don't get that grant in, we don't spend the money. That's why our contingency fund is more tentatively right now than it was yesterday, just by making those few changes.
Yep. Yeah, but the general fund, of course, is not including HERF or grants. It's a separate standalone fund. But, Mayor, I'll just explain it this way. If we're expecting to earn $100 next year, but our cost of living is $110, that means we're gonna be spending $10 of our savings every year. So the net operations, I'm just trying to bring some attention to that, because maybe you're fine with it and that's okay, but
Well, no,
You might have-
the very thing, that's why I'm concerned about the contingency fund, because the bottom line is, that's our savings.
Yep.
And if right here in this budget, the contingency fund, it said, was $1,097,000 and some odd dollars. And at the end of tonight's meeting, in the contingency fund tentatively, we have 1,107,000. So we gained $10,000 by making some of these cuts, if it all adds up. So our contingency fund, which is our savings, is up $10,000 tonight over what it was yesterday.
Yeah. That's correct.
That's a long ways from the $300,000 we're looking for.
Yeah.
And maybe, maybe council, you're fine with that situation. I just want to be transparent in the fact that in the future, there may be some operational cuts that may need to happen if you have a structural imbalance, which means your ongoing revenues are less than what your operations are.
And that for sure is what we're trying to avoid, and there's no way to predict what our revenues might be, but I guess what I'm saying is our savings tentatively is better today than it was yesterday by making these cuts. So if our contingency fund today is 1,107,000, then are you saying that 300,000 is still gonna come out of contingency to cover
No,
our?
because our estimated contingency for the last year's budget, we actually ended up much better than we thought. So we're ending, if you look at the projected actual column on page 4 of 32, the 23-24 projected actual, we're expecting to end the year at 1,580,000.
And we ended at 1,810,000.
So in other words, we thought we'd be at 1 million, but because revenue came in higher and departments spend less than they budget, then we actually ended up with 1,580,000.
Okay.
Down at the bottom.
So
So-
there's our $300,000 right there.
So we're not
Yeah.
flapping in the wind, but if revenues don't come in, we could be in trouble, but if our revenues hold, we're gonna be all right.
Yeah, you'll be fine for next year, and then it'll have to be evaluated the following year to see
Yeah.
what the situation is.
So I guess then, what you're talking about then, let's say that we cut out the crusher fines on the levy. Let's say we cut out the mini-X. Let's say we cut out the new freezers. That's still not gonna affect the 330,000 you're talking about, because that's capital outlay versus operating costs. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
So
Exactly,
we
yeah.
really, so the only way we can cut out operating costs is to start firing people. Or make more money.
Yes.
Okay,
Exactly.
I understand now. Okay?
I understand, but it's kind of stupid.
But the bottom line
That's
is,
accounting.
right now, today, we have not depleted our savings.
Right.
We increased our savings tonight by $10,000.
Yeah.
So, and if we're careful, a year from now, we could increase it more than that. Oh, I do have one last question, okay? And then I'll shut up. So,
Yeah,
so we
right.
have, no, I'll slap you, Cecil. So, I can run faster than you.
Yes, you can.
So, I do have a question though on the revenue. So we have this, my brain is shot. On our checking account, it's a sweep account.
Mhm.
And that money is available for 1 hour a day. The rest of the time, that money is in a savings for 23 hours a day, making a certain amount of interest. where in this budget does it show the interest that we made on our sweep account?
That all gets recorded in the general fund first, and then at the end of the year, we distribute it based on each fund's balance. But you can see on page 6 of 32, under 103610, miscellaneous revenue, which is interest earnings.
Yeah.
And this is what has contributed to the extra savings that we brought in, actually. We budgeted, we expect,
So the estimated ending is 60,000.
the reason is because that 207 as we've received, it has to be spread to electric fund, water fund, wastewater fund.
But only the 60,000 went into the general fund.
Right.
Okay. And then all of that is, so then if you go back to the court fines of 200,000, estimated ending 230,000 for this year, that
Right.
230,000 was brought in by the police. That's the
Yes.
net after the state took their bandit portion. Okay.
Right.
Okay,
So
I think I'm
So
good.
these revenues that came in over budget has helped the town in their savings to allow you to spend, I guess, more next year.
Okay,
Yeah, but if we keep it down, then we don't need to. Be
okay.
careful. We just gotta walk careful.
I have some questions on that other deal, but tonight might not be the right time.
No, because we still got another
Like that
session.
check for $42,000.
Oh, I asked him that.
No, I know, but did it go into that, okay, that fund? Is that why it was there for 6 months? Is that where it was for 6 months?
So it could gain interest,
Yeah,
guaranteed.
and then the same thing with the 300, or the 190,000 that they brought in. Does that go into that fund also?
This year it went straight to expenses. And that 230,000 is part of the reason when you talk about operating expenses, that 230,000, this year didn't go into the general fund. It went to pay the deficit that was from 697 up to whatever.
I'd just be
But in
curious.
years past, they have said that money has to be there for a year, and that's not true.
Is there a way we can see that every month?
Yeah,
I'd like to
the
see that
court-
every month.
the court has a record of it on a monthly basis, and she brings them when she does her, reports, and we can ask her for that, and she'll include it. So we know exactly.
I think that's what I'm asking, not necessarily that, but I would like to see which account it goes into, if it's going into that revolving account, and how much interest is coming off of that. And then we could use that interest to put into that fund. that
The
you're-
savings or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
contingency
okay.
fund.
We can find that out, I'm sure.
and that's another day with that.
Yeah. I think the way it stands, everybody, so even if the bottom line is, our savings is better than it was,
Oh, yeah.
and if we go to cut in capital outlay, it still is not gonna change that 300 operating.
Yeah.
But in the end, the subtotal doesn't look that great, but the bottom line is way better.
So really, it's kind of all the same, it's kind of a wash.
Yeah, but everything has a budget number and has to be accounted for. That's
No,
what Lars's job is. I agree with you. I mean, it's a wash. If we're,
We're not as bad as we thought. It's
if
not
we're
as bad as.
careful and watch
Yep.
what we do, then
Yeah,
we're,
be good.
we're in good shape.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
It's all right, we
Heck,
got,
we still got Lars
we
hung
still
out.
gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We better shut up.
Thank you, Lars.
yeah, thank
We're
you.
not trying to be,
We just got some more meeting on other items. So I'm gonna go ahead and hang up the phone, Lars. Thank you so much again.
Is he gone?
He is now.
He is now. I'm hanging up. All right.
Well, I told him I was gonna hang up.
So, actually, we don't have any more items. We covered you earlier, so we're good.
Well, me, but there's, more back here.
More on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
we're not, oh,
It's the,
Which one on the agenda?
on the audits, it's executive session.
Emergency session,
okay, so
should be in your.
we'll
packet.
adjourn the regular session and